To Celebrity Radio, it's Alex Belfield talking to some of the country's biggest stars and some of my favourite people, and we've got one for you today. Sean Wilson played Martin Platt in Coronation Street for decades, and we fell in love with him. Since then, he's gone on to become literally a master chef. He now runs the Saddleworth Cheese Company, which he's been working on for years, actually. Gone into ASDA, it's called Artisan Farm, and I'm delighted to say Sean joins us on the phone now. How are you?
I'm very, very well, Alex. Yourself?
I'm great, but not as good as you. I tell you why. To go from one brilliant career to another is unheard of, really. People struggle to do that. You seem to be very happy, and I suppose that's winning the war, isn't it?
Two answers to that. One of them is thank you very much, and it's nice of you to say. But also, you know, it's the 21st century nowadays, in my opinion, is it's a changing world. You put 50 people together and ask them if they're all doing what they did when they were 18, and you will probably have, in the 90s, negative answers because people change careers, and that was my choice way back in 2005.
I got to know you obviously through Coronation Street, as many of my generation did, and we grew up with you. I mean, there's a coziness about you. You must still get recognised on the streets with great affection, because there was never sort of negative stuff around you, was there?
Yeah, well, I do carry quite a lot of recognition, and they go walk out of the door and walk down the street, and most people will acknowledge that I'm there. So, which is a good thing when you're selling something, Alex.
Yeah, it does help, and we're going to get to that in a bit. And this new career that you've got in food is extraordinary, and what a remarkable success, because to create any business in 2017 that makes a profit is incredibly hard, let alone one as specific as yours. You've found a true niche, haven't you?
Well, it's a passion, and that's the thing. You know, I had the opportunity to. I went to work at a Michelin star restaurant when I left Coronation Street for a while. A lovely friend of mine owns the place, and he said, "Sean, would you like to come and work with us?" And I tentatively walked into the kitchen. But I've been teaching myself how to cook now for the last, for 20 years before then, while I was in Coronation Street. So I was a good cook. Clearly still am. So I worked there for a short while and got to know the chef there, Lisa Allen, famous chef in her own right. And we got talking about Europe and provenance and wines and cheese, and how I'm impressed with how something that comes from the land can be fashioned into something so beautiful. So she introduced me to a Lancashire cheesemaker, and that's the long story short, really. I took my passion into the world of cheese.
I've been around long enough to know that the two jobs I'd love to do, one is working in a soap, especially Corri, and two is to be a chef, but I can't because I'm too lazy. They're both laborious jobs that take hours and hours and hours. You've picked a tough gig, really, haven't you?
Well, I suppose so, but I only know tough. You know, the world that you like is the world that you know.
Yeah.
So since then, I opened the Saddleworth Cheese Company, which I've now changed to the Artisan Farm Company, because my products are going more nationwide. Yeah. So somebody in Kettering might not recognise the place name of Saddleworth, so I've changed it to a more nationally recognised brand. So I opened that in 2009, and just 2 weeks ago it was the International Cheese Awards, which we all enter, and not only did my blue cheese win bronze, my blue cheese is called Smelly Apeth, and it's made quite a name for itself, and I'm very proud of it. But I am very proud of it, and it came third. The International Cheese Awards are the biggest cheese awards in the world. So to take a third in the blue cheese category was something else. And then I was invited to join the Guild International de Fromagiers, which is invite only, and 6,000 members in the world. And I was initiated into the Guild, so which is kind of like the cheese world putting its arm around me.
Wow, what an honour.
I know.
Let's just talk about cheese a minute. I know this might seem a bit geeky to some people, but how difficult is it to make the perfect cheese? Because what I've worked out is I go to farm shops a lot, and isn't it funny how we might be short of cash, but we'll still spend a lot of money on a little something if it's beautiful. I guess that's works to your advantage. People will pay for this stuff.
We also have preconceptions that cheese is expensive. It's not expensive. You can't even buy a a bacon sandwich for less than £4 nowadays.
Right.
You know, you can buy a great piece of blue cheese that's been fashioned either by myself or all the way down to where Roquefort is made. You know, gorgeous cheese for £4. It's either that or a bacon sandwich. I know which one I buy.
The sort of the farmers markets and the farm shops that have sprung up all over the country have really helped with that. It gives us options at least and a choice.
But, you know, I've just joined the supermarket world, and of course I've been asked lots of questions by interviewers, and my main answer has been, you know, you go to a supermarket and you know that not to expect anything that's handmade in the supermarket, because it's a commercial world, it's a multiple world, and it's to cater to the masses. But if you go to the cheese counter in any supermarket, you'll have an 80% chance of picking up something that is handmade.
Right.
And it's probably the only section in a supermarket that where you can source something very confidently handmade. And I can't think of another section that will probably be as handmade as that. So, you know.
In terms of volume, how much are you churning out a week?
We supply 180 different ASDA up and down the country, from Glasgow to beyond London. That's the ASDAs that have delicatessen. So there are 180 of them. So that's where people have been sourcing most of our cheese. And of course, the order changes on a weekly basis. You know, it starts tentatively, and then hopefully it becomes more and more popular, which it seems to be doing. And you know, like I say, people appreciate a handmade product, and hopefully they've heard of myself and my involvement with cheese, and so they pick it up, and that's kind of how it goes.
Sean, just give me the name. Let me just get the link to the new website, because I've got the Saddleworth one. But do you want me to put in? The new website is just. Let's go back to the beginning and talk about your life. Did you always want to be an actor, or did you always want to be a chef?
Good question, Alex. But do we all really know what we want to do when we're 17, 18? I don't think we do. I mean, my main two interests in life, actually three, were food and cooking. With Keith Floyd coming to our screens, I think he was the initiator of my main interest in cooking. That was around 1983, 84, where men were kind of then open to go into the kitchen, whereas before maybe it was frowned upon. It sounds like such an old world then, doesn't it, Alex? You know, when men weren't really allowed in kitchens. Oh my God.
And isn't it bizarre now? I mean, I'm like you, I just love food. I can't cook very well. But isn't it funny now, the biggest chefs in the world are all men now?
Well, they've always been men at that level, you know. So for time and immemorial, mostly it's been men, because, of course, it is a vocation, and you've got to give your life to it.
And the standard of food in the UK, I've spoken to Gordon about this, and Jamie and people. I think at the top end it's as good as it's ever been, but at the bottom end, if you get a sandwich on a train or something, it's probably getting worse. Do you agree with that?
Well, yes, it's the world of processed foods. It is really a problem, in my opinion. Because processed foods now, they're splitting fats, whereas it being a whole fat, anything that's a whole fat, so long as you eat it with some kind of moderation, i.e. with cheese, you know, the government have been saying for years, if you can eat a piece of cheese the size of a little matchbox, which is probably about, I think it's like 30 grams or something like that, that's the amount of cheese that you should be eating on a daily basis. But because it's whole fats, and your body needs these whole fats because we've evolved that way. Yeah. Whereas splitting the fats, which is what processors do, is quite dangerous for the body, and especially when it is taken in the amounts that people are being enticed to buy in. You know, these pizzas and lasagnas and ready meals and sandwiches, and, you know, everything's processed, and it's not good for us. You've only got to walk down a high street and look at the shapes of people that have changed. Yeah. And it's because of processed foods.
I think it's incredibly worrying. I mean, I lost a lot of weight about 5 years ago, and I did breakfast radio, which is tough because you get up and have breakfast at 5, then you finish your show at 9 and you eat again, and then you're hungry at lunchtime and you're hungry mid-afternoon, and before you know it, you've had 7 meals a day. And obviously we go in these service stations and have these sandwiches. What's the answer to that? I mean, it seems to me the way I turned my life around was by eating meat, by eating cheese, and by eating salad and vegetables. Just, it is quite simple. Eat like Neanderthal man. Eat from the ground.
Yes, and that's exactly what I do, and I do twin that with exercise, of course. I play squash on pretty much a daily basis, but yeah, you know, I think about exactly what I'm eating. You know, I'll think in the morning, am I eating enough fibre? Am I eating enough protein? Well, you know, I'm a cook, and that's what I do. Am I drinking enough water? That's another big thing as well.
Yeah. How big's your team now at Artisan Farm? It takes a lot of people to build an empire. Where are you at? How big is your operation?
There has been lots of cleverness used by myself and my business advisors over the last 9 years, and we use the dairy now to make our cheese, because I was in there for 2 years making the cheese with them, until my business advisor said, "Sean, can they make your cheese for you?" And you go, "Yes, clearly, of course they can." Well, get out of the dairy,
right?
And start selling your product. You know, you need to get yourself into the business world, and that's kind of what I do. So, you know, I hire the floor at a bona fide dairy, which is a dairy of provenance. It's the only farm in the Lancashire region that uses its own herd.
Wow.
Which is why I chose it, because provenance, going back to the beginning of the conversation, has quite an importance in my choice of foods. So that's why I chose it. So then I just hire it. So actually, I'm using his staff.
Smart. Very smart. Yeah. And in terms of getting in the supermarkets, I've spoken to people before who say it's an absolute nightmare. The space is limited in these supermarkets, no matter how big they get, and you have to compete, and it's endless negotiations. How was it for you? Were they pleased to have you, or do you have to fight for your slot?
Well, you have to fight for your slot, but then there are people that will do that on your behalf, and because supermarkets were quite reluctant to speak directly with producers, but there are people who are conduits to bringing the producer to the store, and they're the people that you've got to become friends with, basically, and then they can purvey your goods in the way that they are trained to do, and that makes it a lot easier.
Let's talk about the Coronation Street years, if we can, for a minute, because that's where people will know you from most famously. As you look back on it now, I mean, it's ages since you were there. It only feels like yesterday because you were around for so long. It is extraordinary, that level of fame. Do you look back at it now with fondness and good memories, or was it just a lot of hard work? Because you guys work so hard and such long hours.
Well, it is long hours, but that's your choice. You sign on the dotted line every year. Coronation Street don't do contracts any longer than that. So when you sign on the dotted line, then you've got to do what comes your way. And there'll be some characters that aren't busy that year, and there'll be some characters that are very busy that year. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the people that was busy for years down there.
Yeah.
So I just had to plan it a little bit like an army manoeuvre.
Yeah.
Because just to explain to the listeners, I could be doing 5 episodes this week, which we're filming, but we're also finishing off the 5 episodes from last week, and we're also doing pre-shoots on the 5 episodes for the following week.
Wow.
So at any one time, I had 15 scripts going all at the same time. And of course, in the acting world, your listeners might be interested to know that we don't film them in order. We film them very much out of order, which means that we're not filming them in chronological order. So,
yeah, it's extraordinary.
So really, we only get to see the episode ourselves when it hits the screen.
I wonder whether your greatest skill as an actor is not remembering the lines, but forgetting them immediately after, so you clear up room to remember the next. It's a unique skill, soap opera, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I think I became a little bit of a master of that, insofar as that I was using a dictaphone to learn my lines. And once I put on Saturday, which was our day off, of course it was line learning day, which made it a 7-day-a-week job. Mm. But I put my 40 scenes onto the dictaphone, And once I switched it off, my memory was in the box. I could just do that.
Amazing.
So then I wasn't travelling around all the time with all these words and scenes in my head. It was in the box. So when I switched the box on, I switched my memory on. So and it worked for me.
Extraordinary. So, do you still watch? Are you still keeping up with it?
No. No. I wish I had time.
Yeah. Is that like opening an old wound? Because, of course, the Platts are still there and still, ironically, they're in the forefront of the show, aren't they? That legacy lives on.
Absolutely. The Platts are integral to Coronation Street, and I am the original. So yeah, there's a touch of pride there, of course. And Coronation Street has seen that it has to move on in this particular way to keep the viewing figures. So you know, it's a machine that works just like any other machine.
Yeah, and they're seemingly working harder than ever. They're going to an extra episode again. I mean, were you there during that period when they went sort of to more episodes? Because that's when it sort of changed over, wasn't it?
Yes, I went from the 2 episodes. I started on the 2 episodes, and then we went to 3, and then to 5, and now they're on about 65, aren't they?
Yeah, ludicrous. Do you think something gives in that in terms of the production? It must be tough to keep up.
Well, now I work in a cheese factory. It could have been worse. I could have been in the sausage factory.
And as for acting, are you done? Would you like to go back? Because I mean, you've done other stuff as well, whether it be Waterloo Road.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. I have an agent, a London agent, who represents me on that behalf, and I'm offered things, but you've got to weigh. I'm in a fortunate position where I can weigh things up if it's worth my while.
Right.
And so when something comes along that's good and chunky enough and can justify taking that amount of time from me, then yes, of course, love to.
Do you get offered the Strickleys and the I'm a Celebrities and the CBBS?
No. I've done a few of those now, and I just asked my agent to. You know, I've done enough of those now, so.
I don't blame you.
It's a nice, fortunate position to be in.
Yeah. Well, I suppose in one way now you've got a proper job, so you can pick and choose, can't you?
Well, I suppose so.
Desperation makes you take things that perhaps you wouldn't if you'd got a cheese factory, I suppose.
I suppose so. Yeah.
Are you still in touch with any of the cast from the show?
1 or 2 of them, but of course they are wrapped up in that world, and once you're wrapped up in that world, then you don't really have a chance to catch up with any social scene. I certainly didn't, you know, so I can only speak from my point of view. But yeah, you know, I speak to Simon occasionally, and I speak to Sally Whittaker occasionally. Very much miss Anne Kirkbride, bless her.
The great thing you can take away is you were part of the heyday with the legends, weren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And we had some great times, you know. Oh, we had some great times. I'd only been there a matter of weeks, and I was talking to Anne Kirkbride, and all the cast were in, and we were on the 4th floor of this bonded warehouse. Very nice, very posh. And the TV was on, and Gene Alexander used to enjoy watching snooker, and snooker was at its in its pomp around 1985, 86, and so she was very much into the snooker, Steve Davis and everything, and it was just a coffee room and people and busy. So next minute, at the window, these ladders arrived, and a guy came to the top of the ladders, and he was cleaning the window with his chamois, and you could see he was looking through the window, and he was thinking, "Oh my God, that's the Coronation Street cast! Oh, I can't believe it!" So you could see him looking down, and then just checking everybody out. So then he went down the ladder. So I looked through the other window. I said, "Oh, he's got to speak to his mate at the bottom of the ladder." So you could see him telling his mate and pointing up. So his mate gets on the ladder and comes back up. So as he's halfway up, I said to Anne Kirkbride, I said, like, "Okay, what can we do?" So we all started rolling all over the floor, and as if we were all in some kind of clothed orgy with each other, just for a giggle. Anyway, the guy comes to the top. So he starts cleaning the window, and he's like, "Oh my God, he couldn't believe what he was seeing." So he goes back down the ladder to tell his mate. His mate's like, "No, they were all watching the TV." So he said they weren't. So the first guy comes to the top of the ladder, and guess what? we're all sat there watching the TV and drinking coffee and reading the news.
Sounds like a Two Ronnies sketch.
Oh my God. So I bet those two guys still argue about that to this day.
Oh, beautiful. They can't take the memories away, and the people you've worked with.
That's the kind of giggle that we used to have, you know, it was fun.
Yeah. Hard work, but what a payoff to be part of that legendary team. Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, we just had a bit of time to mess about then, you know.
There's a lot of time. I think that's one of the hardest things too about soap, isn't it? The amount of time that you're waiting. It must be, it's a skill in itself not to want to pull your own hair out.
Oh yeah, you could learn a few languages while you're waiting to work on, on that kind of environment.
Sean, it's been great talking to you. Sean Wilson is the man behind Artisan Farm. You can find out more by going to the website. Put it in Google, Artisan Farm, Sean Wilson. And we wish you all the best with your cheeses. We didn't even get to some of the titles of them. We should do that before we go. Got the Muldoon's Picnic, haven't you? Which is the Lancashire Crumbly. And then
the Lancashire Crumbly. That's the one that's won most of the awards. It's very young, fresh, crumbly style cheese. Like your Wensleydale or your Cheshire.
Beautiful. How's your father?
How's your father make the best cheese on toast that you've ever tasted?
Now, Mouth Almighty, who was that about?
Mouth Almighty, it's just, they're all obviously Lancashire colloquial terms.
Beautiful.
Mouth Almighty, it's a bigger flavour, it's the stronger of the three.
That was my nickname in the 90s. And my favourite of them all, blue cheese, smelly hapeth, which again, I haven't heard that saying since my gran used to say it about 25 years ago. Beautiful, smelly hapeth.
I just thought I'd resurrect it, for tradition's sake, but also it's a blue cheese. And so smelly hapeth seems to fit, and long may that continue.
Beautiful. Congratulations on everything. You can find Sean's cheeses in ASDA. You can go to the website, Artisan Farm, and we thank you so much for your time. Sean Wilson, great to talk to you.
Thanks very much, Alex.